People generally scoff at the idea of kickers in fantasy football. They even go as far as to get them banned and taken out of the league. But if kickers are in your fantasy football league, their points matter. We're in the business of scoring more points than our opponent. So you need to take advantage of every single point that you can. We're going to do that with kickers all season long. Week one, streamers, rankings. I got you covered. I'm doing this work so you don't have to. Let's get into it right now. What's going on, everybody? My name is Michael Hoff. Feel free to follow me on X at the FF Realist. Of course, this is the Face Off Sports Network. And yeah, I'm giving you week one streamers. I'm going to give you 3 players rostered in 50% or less of leagues. And then we're going to go into my top 12 rankings with tiers. I'm going to walk you through a lot of this stuff. Now, if you happen to have any questions, fire them into the comments. I will respond if you may be picking up a player, worried about weather, whatever. Let me know. I got you covered. This will also be posted on X. Again, I'm at the FF Realist. We'll post them there. We have a Discord and we have a Patreon. I'll put that link in the description here in this video so you can check that out as well. Talk some ball with us all season long. But yeah, had some success last year helping people out with kickers. So we're rolling it back. We're doing it again. Now, before we get into the week one streamers and the rankings, why do kickers matter? Again, some people are going to look at this video and laugh and be like, who the hell cares about kickers? Well, again, we're in the business of scoring more points than our opponent. So that tells me that if a kicker is on your team, they matter. So Brandon Aubrey, of course, finished as the #1 kicker last season with 192 fantasy points. That's more than players. That's more fantasy points in half point scoring formats than Najee Harris, who had himself 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. But Tony Pollard also had 1,000 yards, had 7 total touchdowns. Rico Dowdle, I know, doesn't really wow anybody, but he did have over 1,000 yards rushing last year. And those names that I'm mentioning, those are not names that went undrafted in, say, 10, 12 team leagues or more. These are guys that were drafted. These are guys that were needed on a weekly basis. So if you get the right kind of kicker, whether it's for the full season or whether it's for big pop weeks against a beatable opponent, that's going to matter between winning and losing, taking home some fantasy football trophies, taking home some money. So let's get into a little really quick recap last season. Points allowed to kickers in 2024. Top 5 in points allowed. You're looking at the Carolina Panthers, the Las Vegas Raiders, the New York Jets, Chicago Bears, and the Miami Dolphins. 3 of these teams, the Panthers, the Raiders, the Jets, they all allowed an average of 10 or more points to the opposing kicker. You're also looking at Panthers, Raiders, and Bears. All had 10 games or more of 10 points allowed to the kicker position. And 5 weeks of the Panthers allowing 15 or more points. And all but one of these teams had at least 1 week in which they allowed 20 points to the position. Now, listen, we're not going to be married to what happened in week one. Sometimes things change, coaching changes. There could be personnel changes, but it's hard to do a week one video and not go back and look at some of what happened last year, give us some perspective on how we're evaluating things moving forward. We do it with every other position, so this isn't all that different, but I'm going to give you 3 streamers right now that I like heading into week one. Again, if you guys have any questions, fire them into the chat. I will answer them. But the first kicker we're going to go with is Will Reichert. He is rostered in just 9% of leagues. All these kickers are going to be rostered in 50% or less, folks. So stay tuned. But yeah, Will Reichert of the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Chicago Bears. It's going to be on Monday Night Football. It's going to be in Chicago. There is no concern about the weather right now. Forecast looks good. Doesn't look like it's going to be too windy of a night in the Windy City either, so that's good to hear. So Reichert last year played in 12 games, and he averaged a league-high 13.1 points per game. That's pretty damn good. Along with that, that would include 10 or more games. He had 10 or more points, I apologize, in at least 70% of his games. So you're getting consistency, too, on top of just points scored. In week 15 last season against this same Bears team, he had 18 points scored. So that's looking pretty incredible as well. This is a Bears team. You guys saw it when I did the recap there really quick. Allowed the fourth most points to the position, 9.9 on a per game basis. So I like Will Reichert in this matchup. Again, only rostered 9% of leagues. So if you need yourself a kicker, you can go get him now for, nothing. So there you go. The next kicker we're going to go with, my second streamer, is going to be Mr. Will Lutz of the Denver Broncos. He's going to be going up against the Tennessee Titans in the Broncos home opener, and he's only rostered in 27% of leagues. Lutz finished eighth in scoring last year, and he was one of 11 kickers to post at least one fantasy performance with 20 or more points. Listen, this is the other thing I look at too. Not to say the Broncos offense was lacking much last year, but you're looking at a more experienced Bo Nix, more comfortable in the offense. You're looking at the additions of RJ Harvey, the addition of Evan Ingram. So the Broncos should have an ability to push the ball down the field, get themselves into scoring situations, which benefits the kicker, of course. So I like Will Lutz in this matchup. Now, the one disclaimer here in picking Lutz is currently the forecast doesn't look too great on Sunday for the Denver Broncos matchup. But, that could change. So keep an eye on it. Sometimes these storms pass over the course of a week. So there are some thunder showers. But again, I will take Will Lutz if the weather's looking clear, only rostered in 27% of leagues. If I'm going to my final streaming option, let's go to the Houston Texans. Let's go to Kami Fairbairn. I like him in this matchup as well. He rostered in only 47% of leagues. He's going to be playing at the Rams, so he will be indoors. That's good to hear. After posting back-to-back seasons last year with over 90% of his field goals made, Fairbairn dropped down to 85% last season. That said, I still like this matchup. I mean, Fairbairn was fourth at his position in points scored last year. And, the Rams, listen, they don't give up a ton of points to kickers, but I think we could see some good scoring here in this matchup. I think both teams are going to put up some points. The Rams allowed an average of 9.1 points to the kicking position last year in all of their home games. So in home games, the Rams are allowing points to kickers. That's good to know. Listen, he was also one of 9 kickers to average over 10 points on a per game basis. So that's good to see as well. I like Fairbairn in this matchup. He's not always going to be super high on my streaming list, but I will take my chances. So, again, we're going Will Reichert of the Minnesota Vikings. We're going Will Lutz of the Denver Broncos and Kami Fairbairn of the Houston Texans. Those are going to round out my kicking streamers for week 1 of the NFL season. Now, if we want to roll into the top 12 of my kickers, we can start doing that right now. I'll gloss over a couple of the names I like and why. So, tier 1 for me is going to be Chase McLaughlin as my number 1 kicker on the week, Evan McPherson, and then Cam Little. Cam Little, surprisingly enough, was averaged in over 70% of leagues. I didn't really expect to see that, but because he put himself on the map when he hit a 70-yard field goal during the preseason. So I do like him in that matchup against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are a squad that, you guys saw earlier. 15 or more points were allowed in 5 games last season to the kicking position. That's pretty damn good. I will rely on some of that to think that I'm going to get a good matchup there out of Cam Little. I'm also expecting the Jaguars offense to be a little better off this year with the change in head coach and some of the personnel there. So I'm going to shoot my shot there on Cam Little. If I could circle back to Chase McLaughlin, though, my number 1 kicker on the week, it is an indoor matchup. He is going up against the Atlanta Falcons, and he's averaged 10.5 fantasy points in his last 4 matchups against the Atlanta Falcons. So I like Chase to really pick up where he left off last season and put together a nice performance against the Atlanta Falcons. If I could head into tier 2 now, we'll do that. And tier 2 is going to consist of, I got 4 kickers in tier 2, Jake Bates, Cameron Dicker, and then 2 players that I've already mentioned as my streamers, Will Lutz and Will Reichert. So one with 1 L, one with 2 L's. Anyway, so let's get into this here. Jake Bates going up against the Green Bay Packers. It's going to be in Green Bay. Listen, life without Ben Johnson could disrupt this offense a little bit. We're going to find out. Time will tell. Why am I saying that? Because I'm saying I'm expecting the Lions to still be able to move the ball, but there may be some growing pains and maybe a little hard for them to put it across the goal line. So this could help Bates needing to kick some field goals here. So I like that. And, I think this is a good matchup. He's done well against the Green Bay Packers in the past. The weather is looking good there. So I will take this matchup for Jake Bates, my fourth ranked kicker. If I get into the next kicker on this list, Cameron Dicker. I mean, the Chiefs aren't really known for allowing a ton of points to kickers, but the Chargers attempted two and a half field goals on a per game basis last season. That was tied for fourth most in the league. So I will rely on the Chargers' ability to kick field goals. And, listen, I'm not always going to have kickers ranked high that are going against Kansas City Chiefs. We know how good the defense is. That bleeds into the special teams. But I will go with Cameron Dicker this week as my fifth ranked kicker. Again, Will Lutz, Will Reichert spoke about them earlier in my streamers. If you need to go back in this video, you could take a listen to that. But we'll go on to my tier three. And my tier three consists of another player that I had as a streamer and then two other kickers. Kami Fairbairn, of course, again, just spoke about him earlier. Like that matchup when he's visiting the LA Rams. After that, we're looking at Jake Elliott, who finished 12th in points last year. I think he has a good but not a great week. I just don't think he's going to need to be used in field goal opportunities that much against this Cowboys defense. I think the Eagles are going to be able to put some touchdowns in there. And, I love Brandon Aubrey. Again, I mentioned last year, 192 points more than any other kicker. He won me some weeks last year, but he doesn't always win you weeks when he's going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions, of course. Um, it's, ultimately in his last three matchups against the Eagles, he's only averaged 3 points. Now, do I think he can outperform 3 points? Yes, I think he can outperform 3 points, but is it going to be by a substantial amount? I can't really commit to that. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Brandon Aubrey will be my 10th ranked kicker. Then, if I can make my way, if we can round third and head to the proverbial home, it'll be tier four, and it's going to be Matt Gay of the Washington Commanders and Younghoe Koo rounding out my top 12. They close out that tier four as well. Commanders are going up against the New York Football Giants, and I expect the Giants defense to be better. I do like their front seven, so that's why I've got Gay just a little bit lower. Last year, the Giants were allowed the 19th most points at the kicking position, only 8.3 points on a per game basis, so not as juicy as some of the names that I mentioned earlier. Also, only 5 games in which they allowed 10 or more points at the kicking position. Again, you got a lot of other better options that aren't even rostered in as many leagues as Matt Gay. So I would take advantage of that. And then Younghoe Koo rounds out my top 12. He had a little bit of a struggle last season at times, just like Fairbairn, but I like this matchup going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers here, they did allow right here. I'm sorry, get the ninth most points to kickers last year. That would be 9.4 points on a per game basis. 3 games with 15 or more points allowed, and 9 games with 10 or more points allowed to the kicking position. So, and usually these are some high scoring affairs in these between these two NFC South teams. So I like the shot here for Koo to get some through the uprights, put up a nice performance, back end of my top 12. So, again, that's going to be my rankings for the week. Again, tier one, Chase McLaughlin, Evan McPherson, and Cam Little go 1, 2, 3. Tier 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7, Jake Bates, Cameron Dicker, Will Lutz, Will Reichert. Tier 3, we're going with Kami Fairbairn, Jake Elliott, Brandon Aubrey. Those are your 8, 9, and 10 kickers on the week. And then last but not least, Matt Gay at 11 and Younghoe Koo at the 12 spot. So again, guys, I'm going to be here all season long with any kicking information that you need. We're also going to have the defensive streamers, which does extremely well. It did well this week. It did well last year. So take a look at that in our archives as well. We got a ton of videos coming out to help you not only crush week one, but crush your entire season, win yourself some money. Let's have a good time. But again, the link to the Patreon will be in the description here. Feel free to join that. We got the Discord going on. We're going to have everything on Twitter. So there you go. That's my week one kicker rankings, folks. Until next time, stay thirsty, be kind to one another. We'll catch you on the flip side. Cheers.